Hi, good morning. It's Dean from maverickstar Observatory. Before we get into these two charts and where they both originated from, just like to say a very quick thank you to those few people that are supporting us and trying to get us out of deep, trouble with, what's happened to the observatory in the last 18 months. So with that, let's get into it. Okay, so we know there's a lot of talk about climate change, and it is directed at man-made climate modification through us adding, as they would say, greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. But is that true? Is there other evidence to support something else might be taking place? Like I said, I'm going to get to the point of where these charts originate from, but you might recognise the first one, the North Pole migration V's miles. What I've done on both of these charts is I've just put two red lines in, which signifies an important change for two very reasons on both of them. First of all, we can see that on the North Pole migration V's miles, we've got a red line that starts at 900, and then we've got another red line that starts at 1990, exactly 90 years apart from each other. We can see on the North Pole migration V's miles that there has been 500 miles from 1900 to 1990 of pole migration. Then after 1990, there is over 1,000 miles of pole migration. Now on the global surface temperature chart on the right, we've got the two red marks at the exact same time periods. And what we see is a slight indication of a 0.5 degree rise in Celsius in temperature from 1900 to 2000 to 1990. And then after 1990, nearly 1 degree rise in Celsius in temperature from that point on. What we're doing is looking at two different charts. One represents pole migration, the other represents global surface temperatures. But at the exact same time, by no coincidence, is there a shift in almost the same quantity. One on the left represents from 1900 to 1990, 500 miles of migration. On the global surface temperature map, it represents 0.5 degree rise in Celsius temperature. From 1990, on the one on the left, we have 1,000 miles migration. On the one on the right, the global surface temperature, we have nearly a 1 degree rise in temperature. Just look at what on the right hand side is measuring. Observed temperature, human and natural drivers, and natural drivers only. Now I'm going to show you where I got these charts from. So the chart we've been looking at on the left comes from my website. Under TriMag data, you can see the chart and all the TriMag data that we've been collecting for the last 3 years on the pole, exact position of where it's migrating. The one on the right comes from the Wikipedia page that is very likely being put or added to this video just down there before the comments section. And the reason for that is because I've actually typed in today, where I usually just type in CC. I've typed in what CC actually represents, which is climate change. And YouTube's algorithms have picked up on that already, because now they know we're talking about climate change and they want to direct you to the truth. So let's click on that climate change banner and see where it directs us to, and let's see what we find on that page. And we should find ourselves on Wikipedia on the page that refers to climate change. If we just scroll down a little bit and look in the bottom right hand corner right now, you should recognise the chart. It's their own chart. All we've done is show you what happens from 1900 in that chart to 1990 and what happens after 1990 on that chart. We've used their evidence to support man-making climate modifications and therefore altering the climate on our planet, but we've overlaid something else significant that is taking place, and that is from 1900 on that chart in the bottom right hand corner, there has been a 500 mile magnetic pole migration, and that takes us up to 1990, and then from that point on there has been 1,000 miles of magnetic pole migration over the northern hemisphere. On their chart, from 1900s to 1990 represents half a degree Celsius increase in temperature, and from 1990 to the current date, a 1 degree Celsius increase in temperature. Do you think that's a coincidence? Let's just focus on the chart on the right. This is the one that mainstream media want you to focus on. And let's just have a look at the information that they're providing in it. They're saying natural drivers only, and then they're saying human and natural drivers. Well, if we're talking about natural drivers of greenhouse gases being added into the atmosphere over a period of time from 1850 to 2020, we're talking natural drivers probably being responsible for greenhouse gases, in this case CO2, millions and millions and millions of gigatons of CO2 compared to the municipal amount that mankind has put in here. But this chart doesn't make any sense at all, because what they're trying to say is that humans have had an impact on the amount that they have put in to the system, and therefore that has changed the climate. And simply, the maths don't add up. How can humans be responsible for inputting more CO2 into the atmosphere when we already know that the natural drivers of CO2 gas comes from reservoirs like the oceans and land, and when compared to how much is actually put in there compared to how much we put in there, we don't even put in a needle in a haystack. The figures just don't simply add up. And what they're saying makes complete no sense. But you've got to realise there is a motive for this. And the climate industry now is worth trillions and trillions of pounds. It is easier to take money off the taxpayer globally with the CO2 myth causing climate change than it is to convince a country to go to war. There is more money in CO2 taxes than anything else, and you can continue so long as you can convince the majority of the public that this is really happening. You can keep writing cheques for the next 30 years for you and your buddies, and that's as simple as it is. There is something else taking place on this planet, and it's far more important than CO2 and man-made climate change. And that is the magnetic pole reversal, because that is showing us that we are in a rare event that even by excursion standards is well over 12,000 years overdue, but on complete reversal standards is 500,000 years, 500,000 years overdue. And we have no recorded evidence of what is likely to take place, but we can make some best guesses. Worst case scenario, we end up looking like Mars does today. Best case scenario, it is a mild and less, let's say, frightening event than that. But the only way to know for sure is by monitoring it. I think you would agree, and doing a reasonable job at that, and that's what we will be doing tomorrow when we take out the SD card from the Trimax system, which is a bespoke piece of equipment that we built here at our observatory ourselves. And we compare that with other pieces of equipment that we have out in the field, like muon detectors, magnetometers in various places around the world. And this is something that we're trying to continue doing. But in order for us to do that, we do need your support, guys. Last 2 days, we've raised 0 in funding for this observatory. That's got to change. We do have a deadline of January here, guys, and I'm hoping that, with what evidence I've showed you in terms of facts, is something that may convince you to perhaps support what we do here at the observatory. And why not tune in tomorrow when we take out the SD cards and do a pinpoint position of the current magnetic North Pole and work out whether that trend over the last 5 months is still current in a 20% increase in distance over time. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day. As always, bye for now.